We're going to start with a question about customer trust. I'm going to start with you, Al. Give me some good advice on dealing with customer trust.
I think a good advice would be teach your salespeople, teach your customer-facing people about security process and why it's important. Don't just punt that to the security and compliance team.
All right. Now, Kathy, give me some bad advice on dealing with customer trust.
I would say if a customer asks you for documentation, you should just do a ton of back and forth emails and drag the process for as long as possible so that you really get clear what they want and make sure they want it.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. All right, Al, you got to one up that. Give me some worse advice on dealing with customer trust.
Well, if they ask a ton of questions and they give you a really long security questionnaire, you should just say yes to every single question, especially questions like, are you under investigation for privacy violation by the government?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. All right, that was worse advice. All right, let's begin.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Hey, welcome everybody. Today's topic. This is going to be a super fun conversation. Hacking customer trust. This is something everyone is well aware of. And we're going to be talking about a really cool new solution to this very problem. Anyways, an hour of critical thinking about what are the elements required to build a confident business relationship. Oops, here we go. Our guests today, you just saw them. It's Kathy Wang. She's the CISO of Discord. And also Al Yang, the CEO and co-founder of SafeBase. And I believe, by the way, the two of you win the award for our first guest whose last names rhyme with each other. Wang and Yang. That's the first we ever had that. Hey, our sponsor for today's episode is SafeBase. That's Al's company. And actually, we'll be talking about what they're doing later in the show. 7 different ways to participate. Our chat room. Okay, so here are the bad ideas and good ideas topics. It's how not to build trust. I feel confident this audience can pull off some really bad ideas on how not to build trust, and then submit tips on improving trust building. So remember, label as bad idea or 10% better. We'll have the polls. By the way, if anyone wants to come on, just type bring me on, and we will try to get as many of you on camera to ask a question or make a comment during the show. Ask a question. Please give us lots of questions. Click that link at the bottom of the screen to do that and vote for your favorite question. Here's our schedule today. Good advice, bad advice, worse advice. You just saw it. We want your bad ideas. We want your good ideas. Then we're going to play the public interest. We'll put our poll live on how not to build trust. We'll vote for your favorite tip on trust building. We'll play the Department of Yes. Last question, final phase. Simple show with one less game on today's show. And then we'll have our meetup. That should be fun, right? Hey, our next show is a week from today, October 28th. And the topic is hacking API security, an hour of critical thinking on protecting the conduits of corporate data. Guess what? There's a link at the bottom of the screen that says hacking APIs. You should say hacking API security. But I think you can all figure that out. Anyways, if you were to click on that link, it would open another window, would not take you out of this, and you could register for next week's event while still being very much involved in this week's event. And why do you want to do that? Because if you register early, you're automatically entered in a raffle to win a CISO Series jacket. Looks kind of awesome like this. Congrats to this week's winner, Scott Brinker of the College of American Pathologists. He has won an awesome CISO Series jacket. All right, let's get to our discussion at hand. Let's just talk about the issue, and I'll start with you, Al. And I should mention to everybody that Kathy is now the CISO of Discord. At her old company, she was actually a user of SafeBase, but right now she's an advisor to SafeBase, so she's really familiar with their product, and you'll kind of learn what the heck they do. But let's set the stage on where and how are we building trust with customers, partners, and vendors. And this is a vague concept, but we want to talk about it, obviously, in the business concept of why do we do this thing called building trust? Al?
Yeah, and unfortunately today it's a pretty reactive process. I would say a customer, an existing customer or a prospective customer ask the seller, right? So someone is usually an AE or a customer success person, right? These are the customer facing folks to either fill out a security questionnaire or do an audit or ask for a bunch of documentation. So quite frankly, it's a pretty fragmented process for both vendors and buyers, because the buyers who's asking these questions, they're not usually the product champion, right? These are the security compliance people. And so that requires a lot of collaboration from different functions, from security to GRC to legal to sales teams. So it's very fragmented, very reactive, but it's happening when you're getting close to the end of a, call it, buying decision. And then what happens is the security and compliance team are seen as the bottleneck of letting this deal stall, when in fact, this is one of the most important things to build trust to even use the product.
Kathy, per your bad idea or your bad advice up front, I have a feeling that you've gone through that experience of endless back and forth questions. Yes? That was a lot from experience?
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun, right? So so you're the customer and you just want some information. But when you make that request, usually to the sales team, they'll say, okay, let us get back to you. We'll talk to the security people. Then the security people like, why are they asking for that? Right. And exactly what do they need from us? And then the sales team would be like, okay, let me get back to you on that. Ask them for that. So then the customer would be like, okay, I need this because this is part of my risk assessment process. And so I need to look at the SOC 2 reports. I need to look at security questionnaire answers. Okay, well, go ahead and send it over to the security team to fill out and supply those requests. That whole process of back and forth just to get the right information to the customer is a bottleneck. That's the bottleneck that we're talking about. And sadly, it still happens a lot.
Oh yeah,
But
it
Al,
happens overwhelming majority of the time. It happens.
yeah. But Al knows how to solve that problem.
Yes. So, but I want to address something that both of you had touched upon. The mere fact that we have this engagement, and this is the common way that we all behave. Just forget the actual answers here. Just the fact that when someone asks for it, how long they take to respond, in what manner that they respond, that has just trust written all around it as well. Just that, forget even what's even said, just that process of like, wait a second, why aren't they asking us questions? Or why are they taking so long to respond? That's got red flags. Al, you're nodding your head like crazy on this.
Yeah, totally. I just equate these things to nothing technical, but things we experience on a day-to-day basis. Buying, selling homes. That's not a day-to-day thing, but let's say you're buying and selling a home, David. We're just talking about this near and dear to something relevant today that you're going through. But as a buyer, if you're asking a seller for things that they should just know because they've lived there and they're like, let me get back to you, or let me find some documentations that my realtor can put together so that it's presented in the way that I can't be sued, then it just erodes that trust building. You should know the answer. And if you're dealing with let's say in the business context of B2B transaction, if a salesperson have done this many times, they've probably been asked the same question, maybe in a different way. So if they know the answer, they know why, and them just being able to answer and show that they care, even if they don't know the answer, goes a long way in building trust.
So I'm gonna set you up because I want you to explain how your product works, because I think that there's a lot of interest from this audience. And I'll just say that this reminds me, I use a product called a text expander. I don't know if anyone uses this, and this is not your product at all by any stretch, but because like what you said, I've answered questions. In my work, I send often many emails that say the same damn thing to a lot of different people. And that's what I use, kind of a text expander. I have all these pre-written responses to people that are just like, oh, they're asking for this. I go bloop, that's the pre-written response. What you're doing is a far more involved version of the pre-written response. It's the, you want to know this information. I know you're going to want to know a lot of information over time. Let me start giving it to you proactively. And that's what you kind of said at the beginning. And most of this is reactive. So walk us through how SafeBase, just the basic mechanics of how it works.
Sure. It's as easy as a nutrition label for your security and compliance and privacy information, all in a public facing, call it a website, a landing page, if you will. Why it's difficult to do that today is because there's a lot of information you really can't share without understanding who the audience is, or whether they've gone through certain verification, have signed an NDA, or is a paying customer, right? You can't just give your pen test to anybody who asks. This is why salespeople or customer success teams don't really have access, they shouldn't, to these documents just to share, right? Because your SOC 2 report shows exceptions. You may not want people that are not the right people to get their hands on, which is why there isn't an easy solution today. While there are all sorts of information, you want to be able to gate that. So what SafeBase is, we are a trust center that allows companies to share their security and compliance information. And the power of the Trust Center is in automating access to the sensitive compliance information. So think of an extension of your website, but it's smart, it's interactive, and it's real-time data that you can access. Say the SOC 2, you go through an NDA automatically. So none of the GRC or customer trust team need to get involved manually. We verify via Salesforce or whatever CRM system you might use to see if this is a paying customer. So paying customers don't need to sign an NDA, right? So it's just a workflow automation tool to help security and compliance team communicate their security posture and then saving them a ton of time in automating access to the sensitive compliance information.
So Kathy, you actually use this product. So you explained the experience you were having before, which sounded really painful. What happened and what happened after you started using SafeBase? But let me ask you, I'm assuming it took a while to sort of fill out SafeBase for it to work properly for you. So like, what were the first stages of how you used it?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to think about here, right? One is, what were we like before we started using SafeBase? We were much slower and we didn't scale so well. And a lot of security teams nowadays, especially with the market downturn, is lean teams, right? So with lean teams, you've got to be able to do a lot more with less people. So automation is definitely key to that. If you can automate, then you can scale. But it's not just automating, it's automating in a way that will actually shorten sales cycles. See, when you think about it that way as a CISO, the sales team loves that. Like there isn't a single CRO or head of sales who isn't going to love hearing that, right? Like instead of taking a month to go back and forth and get the customer the information they want, now we can do it in days or hours, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of thing that gets CISOs a lot of karma, right? Really good karma in an organization.
So I'm just going to note that someone, Dan Newbart, asked this question. What about HECVAT, the Higher Education Community Vendor Assessment Toolkit? And I'm assuming Kevin Q-I-U, how do you pronounce Kevin's last name? Does he work with you, Al? Yeah.
He's our director at InfoSec, yes. He's
so he says, we have a dedicated spot for it in our trust center. So it is actually part of your environment. So you're taking what everybody else is using, like the HECVAT right here, and incorporating. It's not a new way. It's really just being proactive and trying to eliminate a lot of this back and forth, it sounds like, yes?
That's exactly right. And think, as I used the nutrition label framework earlier as an example, how you build your security program and why you do it, it's up to you. We're not here to tell you what to do or help you do it. We're here to help you communicate so in the way that you own the narrative, right? You own the narrative, so it's not a set of questionnaires or it's pointed questions, one point in time with no context. Some questions might be a no for the right reasons, for the way you've built your security and compliance program. So we're here to help you communicate it. If you have a HECVAT, if you have anything else, even if things we don't have today, we'll help make that available for you in your trust center so you can communicate it. One thing that's really important too is a lot of people think this is going to help sales, and it definitely will. But in the world today, most B2B relationships are ongoing and reoccurring. So there's need for renewal, right? Think about your reassessment. I've done this before. Why am I doing this again? Well, because your security posture probably changed and your buyer knows that. So to allow you to have a place, unlike a nutrition label that's static, you can actually update how you're building your security program, what changes you made. I switched my auditor to a better auditor or whatever it may be. And in real time, communicate that to your stakeholders. That allows you to facilitate and build trust over time.
We have a game.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right, we have the public interest game. Everyone knows how to play. By the way, some really great bad ideas are coming in. What was it? This one, hold on, I just saw it for Chris Foulon. Now, I don't know if this is your bad idea or you were quoting Val Ayers. bad idea, but bad idea. Stalk their Facebook page and ask them out for a date to discuss more. What a great bad idea. Love that. All right. Everyone knows how this game works. Public interest. So here we go. Whoops. I'm clicking on the wrong place. What are the most average monthly search queries for these words? Which one gets more? Is it A, trust, or B, doubt? So are people searching more on trust, or are they more searching on doubt? Now, I'm gonna clue everybody in. I played around at this before we started with Al and Kathy. Al got 0 for 4, but it was not his category. It was last week's show. Kathy did 2 for 4. So I explained to them it's really, really tough to get 4 for 4 in this game. So what do you think, Al and Kathy? What do you think? Trust or doubt? What gets more searches?
I think I'm gonna have to go with doubt.
I'm going to go with trust.
All right. And trust wins. All right.
1 for 5.
Doing very well.
1 for 1.
All right. 1 to 0 right now. All right. Next one. What gets more search queries? Third-party risk or customer risk? This is a tough one. These are both good.
I'm going to go with C.
Third-party risk. And what do you think, Kathy?
I think customer risk.
All right. Split decision and third-party risk again. Oh, my God. Could this be a flop of what we were doing in practice? 2 to 0.
Yeah, I think you did.
2 to 0. How's the audience doing? Hold on. I'm not keeping up. Split on that. A lot of C's, a few D's on that one. All right. Next one. All right. What's most average monthly search queries?
Ooh.
Business relationship or customer relationship? What gets more queries?
I think F, customer relationship.
Okay, I'm gonna go with business relationship.
Splitting again. Who's going to win this one? Kathy takes it 1 to 2. Very good. Just a slight difference there. Slight difference. And the very last one we have here, most average month search queries. Do they lose faith or do they lose trust? What is it?
I think it's G. Kathy, what do you think?
I think I'm gonna go with H. Lose trust.
Split again. Did you guys? I think you split on every single one. This is a first. We've never had this before. Well, all right. Let's see who wins. Lose face. All right. 3 to 1 for so very good job. All right. Did anyone get 4 out of 4? Again, it's so darn hard to get 4 for 4 out of this. Yes, G is mixed with religious queries. Correct, Justin.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
It gets the queries from everything. All right, let's back to our question. Do we have a question here? This is an excellent question from Matt Winkler, and I'm going to throw this to you. And actually, Kathy, I want your answer because you were doing the old tools in the past. With these transparency tools, which you have, how do you drive customers to use them instead of using the old tools like the custom questionnaire and drive the efficiency that you're targeting? So how do you get them off the old way to the new way? Because this is, by the way, you can have the most amazing tool, but if people do not change behavior, which people have a hard time doing, it's tough. So I'm sure in your early development, this was a major issue, and you maybe had a few hiccups. And if you did, we'd like to know what those were. Al
or Kathy?
I'm going to start with you, Al. I'm sorry.
Oh, with me. Okay. Yeah, I get asked that question.
First, and I'll go back to Kathy. Al, yeah, you start on this.
Yeah. I think we get asked this a lot during, call it, end stages of evaluation of our tool, right? It's like, is this actually going to end all security questionnaire? No way. My customer is still going to have me fill out their stuff. Are they going to take my sales team sending them a trust center versus asking me a question to go drop it into some GRC tool? Well, the truth is we're seeing a major adoption, right? And when and it depends on your position. If you're a really, really big company, you can tell your customers kind of what to do. That's not our goal, but you have a little bit more weight behind you because they need your tool. You have leverage, exactly. But in general, what we're seeing is over 70% reduction in the number of questionnaires. We're seeing, let's say you would have spent 5 hours, which I was just talking to a customer yesterday. They would have spent 5 hours on an audit with a bank, right? Because the bank asked it's a customer for an audit. Well, instead, the customer asked for an agenda What are you going to ask me? And then send the trust center and the appropriate documents ahead of time. And that 5 hours turned into 1 hour because a lot of questions like physical security just did not apply because they're a hosting platform, right? So it's not about end all be all. This is just going to solve everything, but it's the reduction in the time you would have spent and the number of questionnaires you would have answered. So it's a point in the right direction. And when you start to see more adoption, because think about who's asking these questions. It's also the security and compliance team of the buyer. They're going to experience it. They're going to say, why don't I have this? This will save me more time as well, because they're usually also on the vendor side. And they start to use this and you start to see an adoption. It's a lot like LinkedIn when you first started. Why would you put your resume online? That's kind of odd. Like I have and then everybody starts doing it and everybody uses it to connect with each other. And it makes building trust around your employee history and professional standing or posts a lot more trustworthy.
All right. Now, sorry that I cut you off earlier, Kathy. I do want to hear your experience. Let me just remind everybody, click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's video chat. All right. Did you have trouble with adoption, either internally or with your customers and partners?
Yeah, let me talk about this from the internal side. Okay,
Sure.
so as a security team, you want great adoption because it will save your team a lot of time, scale the team, all that. So what you can do, we found that it was most effective to start with educating the customer-facing teams at our company. So that would be customer success, sales, right? If they are aware of this platform or tool, then they know to communicate that to their customers, right? All of their accounts. So it starts there. And then once that process starts and the customer tries it out, they love it generally because it like far less communicating back and forth to get what they want. Then we have other mechanisms on that tool that Al's team has developed to help ensure stickiness of that, right? So things like signing up for any future updates to this report or this document, which most customers are more than happy to do. And once they get those automated updates, they then go back to get the updates there instead of asking manually for the updates from the sales team every year when they look at renewals and things like that. So there's a few ways, but it starts with educating the sales teams.
All right. I want to let everybody know that the bad idea poll is up. And there are a lot of bad ideas, and some of them are truly awful. Please get in there and vote there, because I'm going to make both Kathy and Al vote. Or no, vote, play the game, Department of Yes. I need to vote. Actually, Kathy, Al, you're welcome to vote too. I don't want to keep you from voting as well. This just for the dynamics of human nature, we love it when someone answers a question before we even ask it. That's really what you're getting down to, is you can build trust by doing that, asking questions. By the way, I'm going to ask, do we have any good ideas have come in? I'm interested in seeing. 10% better. You're here. Which Dwayne says, surprise your customers by being proactive, like what we've been discussing. When you finish their survey, set a reminder for 10 months later and proactively send them your audit reports and a summary of security initiatives you have done over the past year. Great advice. All right, let's go to our audience questions right now. Okay, we did answer that one. Dustin, okay. So I'm going to start with you, Kathy, on this one. How much information is the right amount to share without a signed deal? Good question. So
Yeah,
what do you need to sign? I like this, from Dustin Sachs.
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, there's mechanisms on there to allow for checks and approvals for, if they have a signed contract. But if they don't, there's always a set of baseline information that you should be willing to provide as a company to prospective.
Right. So I want
right?
to get into the specifics. What is that? Dustin wants to
What
know.
is that?
What
Yeah.
is what is it? They're like, before a signed contract, we're totally fine sharing this, and this should be enough for them to trust us. Give us some examples.
Yeah, so the reality is that it depends on the org, right? So if you're a very transparent company and you're okay with it, then you might even share something like a SOC 2 report, a basic, right? But a lot of companies are not okay with doing that without a signed contract. So you wouldn't do it then. Some places I've seen share like very, very basic assessment reports, right? Any sort of basic network scan and that sort of thing. Also, guidelines. How do you set up this product with the secure configurations? Those types of guidelines can also be shared even before any sort of signed contract. Generally, I think the more transparent you're able to be, and a lot of that is a business decision, right? It has to be supported from top down, the better, right? Because that transparency will build more trust with your prospective customers.
Very, very good point. What have you seen? And do you? I know you say you set it up. I'm not here to tell you what to do and what not to do, but do you have insight on how the customers behave with your product, like what they are giving prior to a signed contract, Al?
So what we see is that customer trust teams are starting to happen a lot, like chief revenue officer. I really didn't hear about that 10 years ago, but that's a common thing now, right? So customer trust teams are happening. And frankly, because people are realizing security is an enabler for businesses, and who makes up the customer trust team? GRC, compliance, security, privacy people. And so when you think about what they want to share before a prospect becomes a customer, to Kathy's point, it depends on the company itself, but we're seeing a trend towards being more transparent. The kind of North Star I usually go to is you go to like trust.salesforce.com. They build their own trust center homegrown. Most companies are needing to build their own, and then they realize it's really, really hard and expensive, and they license SafeBase, which is a lot easier. But if you go there, transparency is built on trust, right? If you want trust, you need to have transparency. That goes for any relationship, with my wife, with my coworkers, with my board, right? Anybody you want to build trust, you got to be transparent. Now, how much can you share? You want to share it all, but you can't without an NDA, without certain gating. That's what SafeBase is here to do. We help you set up those gates, granular access. Overpaying this much, you get this access. Non-paying customer get this, prospect get this, and you don't automatically approve if you don't want to. So that allows your team not to spend a lot of time figuring out, looking up who is this, and delaying the cycle to getting the information to your prospective customer. You get to set those toggles and filter in terms of how much you want to share. And it's really up to you as a team. We've seen big companies share everything. And we think that's fantastic. What I also think is interesting is when my new customers set up their trust center, they're looking at other trust centers and they're saying, oh, wow, LinkedIn shared this much. Oh, wow, Confluence shared this much. Oh, wow, Palantir shared this much. And they go and kind of change what they think.
I would think people do that. It's kind of like a best practices. Oh, well,
Exactly.
LinkedIn must know what the heck they're doing. Let me see what they're doing. Let's copy what they're doing. Actually, Valerie Apperson asked this interesting question. It's actually not within the framework. It's actually not within the framework of what you're doing, but I think it definitely affects it. And I'm going to start with you, Kathy. And this could be something that you've experienced personally, or you've seen happen somewhere else. And she asks, is there a kind of marketing that actually degrades customer trust? So you're doing all these efforts to build customer trust, and marketing is, off in their world doing their thing, and you're like, guys, you're not making this easy on us. Have you run into this issue before?
Yes, I have. The top thing that comes to mind is what we call ambulance chasing in the CISO community.
We're going to record an episode on this.
I
for defense
really hate that when marketing does that, right? Because it's like, okay, so someone's been breached or something has happened to some other organization. And now the marketing department's like, hey, should we doubly advertise our product because it may have helped prevent that? That may be true. A lot of times it isn't, actually. But that may be true. And if it's true, it's too soon. You know what I mean? It's not a good time. It doesn't get people excited about you. In fact, it sometimes turns people against you because of the tactics that you're using. So that one comes to top of mind.
Couldn't agree more. And actually, we're going to be recording an episode of this very topic next week. And now, Jarek Beeson wrote an interesting. He's the commercial CISO over Capital One, and he wrote an interesting post on LinkedIn saying, "If I'm dealing with a problem, you know what I have absolutely no time for? I don't have time for a demo." And even if I did like the product, I don't have time to procure it and install it to fix my problem right now. What I need to do is fix the problem now, Worrying about your demo and everything else, that doesn't have time for. Al, have you seen this happen also where marketing is just fighting against efforts that your customers are trying to do in SafeBase?
So what we find interesting is before companies set up their own trust center, the way it's more about functionality and automating access, they typically have a marketing page on their website, either a www.companyname.com/security/trust. And more often than not, it starts out being a page that security and compliance team want to just put general information that gets asked so often that they're saying, hey, sales team, customer success team, you can point people here. Look at our SOC 2 logo, look at this, look at these compliance certifications, just basic level of we care about our security. Sometimes when we highly encourage this, put your security team bio, because security is about the people and their philosophy, right? But then what happens is marketing gets involved. And we love marketing, but they want to make it jazzy and salesy, and then it kind of ruins what you're trying to do, which is to be objective and communicate facts. And in the security world, I'm starting to realize that sometimes not doing something, there's a reason behind it, and explaining that reason is good, but very clearly that may not make it to the marketing part, right? So what we see is there's a security page usually with companies before they adopt SafeBase, and it's got the right font, the right branding, the right marketing word that's got catch lines, and then it starts to not become what it's meant to do. So we see a lot of customers actually keep that, but then integrate that to the trust center. You can hyperlink, request pen test here, request SOC 2 here, request XYZ here, and that link takes you to the SafeBase trust center. And that becomes really powerful. So I actually think marketing is a complementary function to the trust center, because marketing teams have to do their jobs. They have to get leads. And what is really cool is when you're a prospective customer, you're getting on a trust center. Let's say it's Discord's trust center, for example. Discord's not a customer. Well, actually, if Discord uses Salesforce, which I don't know if they do, this prospective customer can become a lead in Salesforce. And that this way, marketing is happy. The trust team is happy because you're getting documents to the right people, or not the right people because they haven't signed an NDA. So we're very complementary to marketing teams, but it's an important thing we communicate early on.
Do you have like an NDA mechanism built into SafeBase? Yes?
Oh yeah, we have the DocuSign integration, which is the most common one, and we have our own ClickWrap that if you want to use our tool for.
By the way, I like this tip that Larry Rosen threw out. Again, these are 10% tips, which, by the way, we're getting a good number, 10% tips. But as the thing that I always mock our audience with, they always have way more bad ideas than they have good ideas. But Larry's good 10% tip is look at what you are consistently missing when responding to questionnaires and proactively correct them. If they keep asking the same question over and over again, guess what? They're concerned about it. So I like that tip. Very good. Get your questions in, and if you haven't voted for the poll, please do that. And please register for next week's Super Cyber Friday. We are just about 7 minutes away from playing the Department of Yes. So let's get a few more questions in. I'm going to ask you, Al, what has, just in the past couple of years with SafeBase, or past year, actually, I don't even know, how long you guys been around?
About a little over two and a half.
Okay, so very, very good. Let's just say the last year then.
Okay.
What has been the thing that has sort of changed the most in terms of either how people are building trust or the information they're giving out for building trust? Like and maybe there's been a shift, I don't know, but what seems to be what people want more than anything else?
Oh, interesting question. I would say there's a lot of companies that have started in the last, they probably started in the last 3 to 4 years, but they've really caught traction in the last year or two, which in many ways is a tailwind for us, right? And those companies are the security automation players. They help you get a SOC 2. They don't help you get a SOC 2. They help you get SOC 2 ready so you can go work with an auditor to get a SOC 2, let's say, or to get ISO or to get a whatever it might be. And I love that. That's better for the internet. That's better for the B2B world, because in the past it's just security questionnaires. And frankly, I don't know how the reviewers of those questionnaires are actually paying attention to it. And it's a point in time. By requiring your vendors to have third-party attestation, by requiring your vendor to have a SOC 2, let it be a type 1 even, you're making sure vendors are practicing the right processes to build a security. Well, the question is, what happens after? What happens after you have a SOC 2? It's not the magic bullet, right? It's not, oh, I have a SOC 2, no more questions, or I have a SOC 2, no more trust building exercise. Now you have a SOC 2, you have an ISO, you build your security program. How do you effectively communicate that? That has been the trend for us. Now companies are really focusing on building their security and compliance program, privacy program as a business enabler. No longer, well, I wouldn't say no longer, but very clearly, this is even with the downturn, this is not a place where people are really cutting budget. They may not increase budget, but they're not cutting it. They know it's important to enable business, which is great. Now, the question is, if you've built a really good security and compliance program because you're not cutting any corners, how do you let that be your advantage? And I think that's our mission. That's our vision is if you've built a really good security program, if you're dedicating investment there, you should be rewarded for your efforts, right? So we're seeing more and more people getting SOC 2, asking for it, doing third-party risk assessment, because as part of being compliant with your own audits, you need to do these third-party audits. Now, the question is, how do you communicate that more effectively? So that has helped us a lot. And this is why the business exists, because to communicate it, there's a lot of workflow friction and cross-functional friction. It's not security and security teams talking to each other. There's so many middle people, right? So how do we automate the security people away from needing to do the manual stuff?
That gets me to another good question that I'm going to ask you, Kathy. And that is, and I know this from my own work as well, is that you have in your head like, oh, this is the way they want it kind of a thing, right? And then you realize, well, no, they kind of want it a different way, or we're not writing it clear enough, or they're asking these questions. What have you found over time that you said it this way and it's like, no, we need to change it. We need to adapt it because they need it like this, or we're not writing it this way, or it's not clear enough. Like, what have you seen the changes you've made in your communications with your audience, and vice versa, how they've been communicating to you?
Yeah, so if we're talking about customers and what they want versus what you think they want, I think there are a couple ways to tackle this, right? One is there are standards out there like, Cloud Security Alliance or, SIG type questionnaires or other standard form answers. And a lot of customers, what they're looking for and then what they accept is around the lines of those types of things. So if you are not sure what they want, it never really hurts to have a standard form template type answer for them. On top of that, though, there are always going to be very large enterprise customers that have very large compliance programs that will dictate what they want, and it will be slightly different than everybody else. Right, you're more likely to see it with very large corporations than with small to medium size corporations, and that's okay. What you want, though, is most of the time you're giving them what they want and what they accept, and then there's these kind of corner cases where you have to go a little bit more out of your way. That's generally how it works. And it still scales because most of the time you're not dealing with having to do special snowflake type answers all the time.
And as going back to the dealing with major companies, because we've talked about this before, like there'll be a huge company that wants to work with startup X, but if startup X can't get their SOC 2 in order or get this in order, essentially, they're an enterprise. They have requirements like if we're going to work with a vendor, they need, these kinds of security requirements, and we need it. It's so clear that if you don't deal with this right away, like everything else doesn't mean a damn thing, because big company wants to work with you, but if you can't deal with this, forget about how amazing your product is. This is the roadblock. Have you dealt with this, Kathy?
Yeah, I definitely have seen that. It is what it is. However, if I were at a big company and dictating some of these terms, I would want to be very mindful that the best innovation often comes from smaller, earlier stage companies, right? I mean, unless I want to get on that ladder of constantly only buying top right quadrant of
No. But first of all, here's the thing we hear from CISOs all the time. We love to work with startups because they will literally trip over themselves to make sure the product works for us. And the thing though is, if you work with a huge enterprise firm and they have these specific requirements, like we just can't have a company that doesn't achieve these certain levels of security requirements as a partner with us. We can't have that. So I'm going to throw it to you, Al. I mean, I'm sure like really small companies are customers for this very reason. They're like, there's these enormous enterprises that want to work with us. We can't do it. We got to get our stuff together. What's your experience?
Absolutely. And we were in that boat last year before we got our SOC 2 Type 2, right? And I would say of the 200 plus customers we have, yes, we have some big names that I'm really, really proud of. And they happened to work with us before we got our SOC 2 Type 2. And I'll talk about why. But we also have a ton of customers who are at the early stage, Series A, even C stage, Series B, that may not even have a security team yet in-house, right? And the way we help them communicate this and the way we think about this ourselves is when you get that SOC 2 Type 2 report, it's just an auditor telling the auditor saying you're doing the right thing. So start doing the right things. Part of our Trust Center, thankfully, our director of information security is also really involved with our product, right? We're a security first company. We show you best practices, even though we don't tell you what to do. Here's a best practice. You can do certain things to make sure you're doing the right things. And you may not have the SOC 2 logo on your compliance box of your Trust Center, but you can put a little in progress, right? And put your engagement letter with a really well-known auditor in there. Here's our engagement letter with a line. That's what we did. Our SOC 2 is in process. We are doing our Type 2. So it's about communicating with your buyer. You care about security. You're working towards it. Even though we integrate with Salesforce, which is like, wow, like that's high risk level as a vendor, we were able to sign many deals before we got our SOC 2 report. Even though if we never communicated that, they would have said no to working with us because you're a startup, right? And you don't have a SOC 2 yet. But it's actually about communicating it, right? But you will never get that chance to communicate it if you are just a security team talking to the salesperson and the salesperson is trying to talk to the CISO on the other side. That's just not going to work. But by giving them a Trust Center, they can go there and look at it themselves and ask questions on the Trust Center. That facilitates the conversation. And as an early stage startup, is super helpful. And most of them are investing in their security program. They may not get that piece of paper from a third party auditor yet, but they're doing the right things. And by doing the right things, you should be able to, like you said, trip over, including the product and security program, right, for your buyer.
Yeah,
All right.
and I wanna just jump in and say real quick that Al, the in-process thing is very key, as you said, right? Even the government, and they have one of the strictest review processes and compliance processes and requirements, will say, okay, if you are in process to get, FedRAMP, or if you are in process to get some sort of certification, we'll continue evaluating and we'll continue considering. So this is really, really important, and everyone recognizes that innovation comes from earlier stage companies.
All right. A few things I want to mention. The 10% Better poll is up right now. We do still have the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's Super Cyber Friday. Please do that. I don't know if I mentioned it. We're doing our meetup at the end of this hour, so please stick around for the meetup as well. Both Al and Kathy will be there. I know they are both hiring, so if you're interested in looking, please do that. I would not post it publicly that you're looking, especially if you're currently employed. You don't want to broadcast that to your current employer. They'll. I think you can trust Kathy and Al not to blab that out. But we just got a call, came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, you know how this is played. We have some really horrible ideas from our audience, and they're pretty fantastic. I love them. And what I want is to hear your answers on how you're going to deploy what they're suggesting. Al, I'm going to make you go first on this first one. This comes from Dustin Sachs. Again, you cannot be facetious in your answer. Give us an honest answer. The more creative you are, their audience will like it as well. And then also I will vote on how I like your answer as well. I like this one from Dustin Sachs. Answer all questions with "it depends" and provide no explanation.
Well, you want me to react to that? Or
I'm
yes,
going to react
say,
why
yeah.
you're going to actually do that. Why are you going to do that, Al?
I wow, that is better than saying
You're
yes to everything.
You are
Yes,
struggling.
do that.
Hold on.
Look,
Keep going, Al.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of my own team, and a customer is asking us a security question, a long list of security, and we just write it depends, and we link it to our security trust center so that they're like, oh, let me go visit this place, and I can automate getting the SOC 2 report, getting your pen test, look at all this, and it's amazing.
Saves it in the end. If all the questions are answered in your trust center, you don't need to say a damn thing. Go, it depends. Go to our trust center and figure it out. Kathy, what's your answer here? Answer all questions with it depends and provide no explanation. Why are you going to do that?
Gosh, it's hard to top what Al said already. That's great. I have to say, look, if I answer it with it depends, and then just say that's it, clearly we have a very flexible and consulting kind of mindset, right? Because whenever you talk to a consultant, it's always going to depend on what the circumstances are, what the specifics are. So we're very good at being flexible.
Keep them guessing a little bit. Let them know that you're here to be malleable for them. I like that. All right, here's the next one. There's another good one from you know what? There's another good one from Dustin. Wasn't voted as highly. I'm going to mention Matt Winkler's, which I like. Don't answer any customer questions. Got to keep all that information secure, which means we don't share with anyone. That's good. But I'm going to throw another one. I'm going to have this one, and you're going to answer this one first. Also from Dustin Sachs. Ask your customers for a fee in order to answer their questions. Why do you want to do that? I like this one.
Who's going first?
Kathy, you're first.
Okay. Well, I mean, we clearly are a larger company and we require a fee because, it needs to be over a certain account size for us to really even consider that. Right. So,
I don't know, Kathy.
yeah,
I don't
does
like
this
that.
actually happen?
Al, do her better.
Yes. Give me a fee because all the answers are already available on my trust center. Go take a look. You don't even have to ask me.
You're taking my time, and that costs money. You're a consultant,
and your time,
right?
And your time. You can get it yourself.
I'll beat you on that one. All right, good job for both of you. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Let's get our 10. Do me a favor, just so people can see it better. Pull down the bad idea poll. Aaron and Joe. Oh, you already did it. Perfect. He's been reading my mind through this whole type thing. And this was the one I mentioned before. Look at what you're consistently missing. What Larry wrote, missing when responding to questionnaires and proactively correct them. I love that one. And then the other one from Dwayne Grand, surprise your customers by being proactive when you're finished with survey. Set a reminder from 10 months and proactively send them audit reports and a summary of your security initiatives you have done over the past year. Let me ask you, is there a mechanism within SafeBase to do things like this?
Yeah, that's our goal. Our goal is not just one point in time of our security posture during the sales process. It's the ongoing need to build trust with your customer, maintain trust. So by clicking on a subscribe button that we have on every single company's trust center, you're in the know and you're a subscribee to that trust center. Where we're going in the future is to allow our customers to segment those subscribers, right? Think about sub-processor lists. Every time you change your sub-processor list, I got to communicate it to all my customers I've signed a DPA. Today, that is very hard to do because you don't know who should get it, who shouldn't. And what ends up happening, we learn, is to just do a massive blast to every single person in the admin list of their users, and they may or may not need to get it, right? So to be able to segment the audience and communicate to them all the changes, and more importantly, where we want to go, think about a renewal happening 90 days in advance. Your customer success team can say, here's our trust center changes, a change log from when you sign to where we are now. Look, there's nothing changed, or look, here's all the upgrades we've done. Here's all the incidents that happen on a macro basis, right? So SolarWinds happened, Log4j happened. This is how we remediate or dealt with or communicated to everyone how we're dealing with it. You may not want to share that publicly. So it can be done through an NDA or with existing customers. Those are all the things that are so important to maintaining trust. Getting a trust center to make sure information is automated and can be disseminated easily, that's just the starting place. Is how you then over time communicate what you're doing, how you're doing it, to macro incidents, to changes you make on your own security program. Super key.
All right, I want to wrap up the show. I'm going to do some closing comments and then come back with some final comments. If anybody's got a last question, squeeze it in right now. We might have time for one or two more questions. But first, if you have not clicked the button at the bottom of the screen, do that right this very second, because it's going to disappear in a moment. Next week, Hacking API Security, an hour of critical thinking on protecting the conduits of corporate data. Remember, if you register early, you're entered to win one of these awesome jackets. You want to get one. Congrats again to Scott Brinker for this week. All right. Go ahead, Aaron, and change the link at the bottom of the screen. SafeBase, thank you so much. We've been talking a lot about you guys today, and we don't normally talk this much about what a vendor's product does on a show. So, but I felt this is such an unusual way to deal with a problem that we're all well known of, that I really invited this, and I hope everyone else appreciated, because I love what they're doing over at SafeBase as well. And we greatly appreciate you sponsoring this episode of Super Cyber Friday. Hey, guess what? In 100 minutes from now, we're going to have another show at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific. Cybersecurity headlines, week in review. We have Lee Parrish, who's the CISO of Newell Brands. Lee is awesome. If you have never heard him before, he used to be the CISO over at Hertz Rent-A-Car as well. He is fantastic. And by the way, who is sponsoring that? Also SafeBase as well. So we appreciate that. All right. Stick around for our meetup. If you see the link at the bottom, you can actually click on that link now. Just have it open up in another window. And we will be doing that link up as soon as this entire thing ends. Please get questions in, actually, because we do have a good amount of time to wrap this up. Tell your friends to join us. We do this every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Those are available Fridays. Like, we're not going to do it on the Friday after Thanksgiving. And if you want to sponsor Super Cyber Friday, guess what? We've got 2 left in 2022. 2. So if you want one of them, ping me and we could do it. We got plenty in 2023, but 2 left in 2022. All right. Let's get to my questions, since I don't see more questions from our audience yet. We talk a lot about just trust in general, about using trust takes a long time to develop. But when you're doing a relationship like this, you have to do it quickly. Kathy, how have you been able to build trust quickly?
Yeah, so building trust quickly generally means being more transparent, right? Being willing to write blog posts about, security vulnerabilities that may have recently been mitigated on this product. So that's a big part of it. Another one is setting up more automation, like with SafeBase, to tell a narrative about, here's our security data that you're looking for. Those are quick ways to set things up. But I will say that you mentioned trust takes a long time to build. And it also, once you lose the trust of a customer.
Oh, it takes a lot longer than that.
Yeah. It takes maybe like 10 plus positive trust or the experiences for them to regain that trust.
That's a really, really good point. It takes a hell of a lot longer if you lose it. Or, many of us just say lost cause too. Like, that ain't ever coming back. Once you have trust enabled, is it just simple as, well, now we're doing business? Or even when you're doing business, do there become more trust elements you're adding to increase business? Al, you're nodding your head a lot. Like, how does, the upsell happen as you build more trust?
Yeah, I think about it. I think about building trust, and I think about it building quickly, and I think about it maintaining it. And maintaining it gives you opportunity to build even deeper trust with your customer, right? So if you're going on a date and you bring your resume, your transcript, your last doctor report, like, that isn't going to necessarily build your trust quickly, right? It's not about having everything ready. Here's a package. Trust me, right?
Well, that's too much too soon.
That's too much. But imagine after a really good date and the person is asking you, oh, you mentioned this restaurant. What was the name? And you took 10 days to respond. That's not good either, right? It's about being responsive, being honest. So after you've now signed a deal, let's say, or you're a customer vendor relationship, your customer is going to have questions for you, right? It could be a macro event, like we mentioned, the Log4j, the Spring4 shell. Hey, how are you dealing with this? You should be able to respond quickly. Unfortunately, today, even for a small-ish company like SafeBase compared to Discord, we have so many customers, right? Or we have so many vendors that power our stack. It's impossible for us to answer every customer's question if we wanted to. So it will take time. So how do we make sure they know we care about this? Go back to having a public place. It doesn't have to be SafeBase. It could be your website. Go back to having a public place for you to communicate and respond to your customer's question, to anything that might happen. It doesn't have to be a macro event. It could be, hey, you said you had a SOC 2 that was in process. Where is it now? Oh, here is the answer. Here's the bridge letter. So it's just about being responsive. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to be responsive because who are the ones being responsive? Security and risk team. Guess what they're doing? Everything else about building and securing the company, their main job isn't to respond to every customer's question, right? Unfortunately, that always feels like the most hair on fire problem. So it's about giving companies the platform so they can be responsive or have the optive and the tool to do so.
Matt Winkler, who has a 10% tip on the poll, and also just posted here. I don't think he works for you, but I swear he could probably be your best salesman the way he talks here. Building trust means speaking their language and anticipating their needs. Increase your proficiency in those two, and trust building happens more quickly. He adds on, you're essentially selling security, something the CISO series knows a thing or two about. I appreciate hearing that too, Matt. All right, we have just literally a few minutes, and you know what? I want to closing comment, and I think Dustin Sachs has a great question for closing comments, so I'll ask both of you. I'll start with you, Kathy. What is the most important thing companies can do to increase customer trust? What do you think it is?
I would say transparency is the most important thing. Publish more. Don't be afraid to let your customers know what you've done recently to increase security measures.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of this. Well, what if so-and-so sees this? Well, if so-and-so really wants to find out, they're going to find out, whether you publish it or not. Mm-hmm. All right. What do you think the number one thing is, Al?
This is the first time Kathy and I are going to agree, I guess. It's also transparency. But I would also say on top of that, we watermark your document, we protect your document. Sometimes we even expire your document. So transparency, but with control, with your own control. And that's what we're here to do.
You're the Snapchat of trust, right?
I don't know if I love that because of how I know Snapchat.
I know Snapchat is not the brand you want to connect yourself with. I'm just giving you a hard time. All right. Any last things you want to say to our audience? If you have a special offer, anything you want to offer them, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you, Al?
SafeBase.io, you can set up a demo. I love to set up something with a CISO series so people who are here can take advantage of a certain deal I can talk to my team about. But
all right,
just really appreciate the participation.
That's great. And you're going to be in the chat as well if everyone's got questions about the product or looking to work at SafeBase, or if you'd like to work at Discord as well. Kathy as well. Any last comments or anything you want to suggest to our audience, Kathy?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for participating, for all those wonderful, bad advice and the 10%. I've
Tips.
been kind of
a lot of good stuff in here.
It's really great.
Dustin Sachs wants to know, can I create a SafeBase page for me personally? Because most people do not trust Dustin Sachs. That's the problem. You know what? Hold on. I throw this out. Not a bad idea because, like QuickBooks, Intuit's QuickBooks has a personal, finance version of it. Is there a personal version, Dustin, of SafeBase on the horizon? Or I'm not Dustin, Al.
Yeah, well, for me, I think Trust Center will always be for companies. So if Dustin LLC decides to become a company, then we can talk. Otherwise, you can go to LinkedIn, get a professional, a professional resume or profile. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Please click the link at the bottom. Click it now. Seriously, click it now. Are you clicking it now? Click it now. Join us for the meetup. It's a lot of fun. We have a ton of fun. I want to thank our guest, Kathy Wang, CISO over at Discord, and also Al Yang, CEO and co-founder over at SafeBase. We greatly appreciate SafeBase sponsoring, and huge thanks to our producers, Aaron and Andrew, for making this all happen. Aaron, take me out. Click the link, everybody. Click it.